Happy Monday. Welcome to Retake the Week. Yeah, we're still doing it. It's still a bit weird. It's still a bit different, but eventually we'll all get used to it, I think. It's much better this way. At least now we get to talk about things like grand finals like we had yesterday, a big best of five to start the year. Of course, featuring the sneaky dark horse pick of Team of the Year for last year, but that's a debate for last year. We're leaving all that stuff behind now. We're moving forward and moving on. Before we get into all the little details, the breakdowns of all the matches that happened, we do have to thank the members who make this show available to the users on Spotify who are listening now. All three of you, hello. If you aren't members, please do become members. That's how we put the show on Spotify, is through the membership payments. But yeah, members also get access to King's Court interviews, the BTS, prospect demos, more stuff. We're trying to plan some stuff with the second tier members currently to do the behind the scenes sort of like member-led discussions. We'll see if that ever becomes public content or if that remains member content as well, but that's a conversation to have with those people. If you're not amongst them, too bad. Right. We do have the member Q&A straight away. It's a bit of an awkward one with a lot of days left in January, so it doesn't feel quite like the end of the month in the same way. But before we get into it, I haven't said hello to someone. Quacke, let's pretend we haven't spoken for 40 minutes before this on the BTS. How's it going?
It's going good. BTS is also something you get as a membership reward.
It is.
It's usually pretty fun. Yeah, it's usually pretty fun. No, I'm good. It's been a good week. A lot of stuff happened. I'm slowly starting to find myself in I have no lectures now. The only thing I have left in my education is my thesis, which is a lot of work on my own, but there's nothing in my schedule. There's nothing I have to do, nothing I have to show up for. So I'm very slowly starting to find myself in an unemployed schedule, even if I'm very employed. But it's very much like I get up at weird hours and I work at weird hours and I watch YouTube at weird hours. And yeah, but I'm starting to make sense out of it, so it's probably gonna work.
Yeah, I hope it does. But it's always odd to figure out exactly when you're making your own schedule, sticking to it and everything. It's always a weird thing. But yeah. I'm sure you'll thrive. But let's get into these questions. Our first question comes from Snay196, who asks, "What's a recent game you really enjoyed watching as a viewer?" And for me, I actually have a couple examples just from this last week that I've specifically already planned to talk about in the video. So, Quacke, I'm going to let you answer, see if there's anything you can bring to the table that's new and different. Because for me, I'm essentially going to be previewing the rest of the episode by answering this question.
I think the Heroic Spirit game was really fun. Also, the Pain Navi game, because for once I felt like I was starting to have more opinions about how the tactical aspects of the game, and I was like, right, this is more interesting to see now. I like the Imperial game. It's all Blast Bounty games, really, because that's what I've cared about the most recently. Yeah, but the Heroic Spirit game was really fun, especially the first map on Anubis.
I'd say map 2 was a bit of a crush job, but map 1, there was some play. There was some entertainment to be found.
Yeah. Oh, actually, there's a couple. I did a casting for an amateur tournament just the other day on Saturday. Lil Mix on Lil Mix's stream. And it's an amateur tournament, but I think all of the top 4, top 8 teams were semi-pro teams playing for a small payout in not even cash. It was you get a reward on the side. But it was pretty cool. And it was there was one particular game where they one of the teams almost threw the entire game by allowing one guy to 1v5 by trying to go knife him, which is just so hilarious.
It's the most matchmaking thing.
Yeah, and then they were super cocky into the next game where they were really talking shit. Oh, you're so fucking shit after the first 2 rounds. That was really funny. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to enjoy those casts as much as I did. So go watch amateur games, everybody.
Yeah. If you want to watch low-level Swedish CS, watch whatever Quacke is casting. That's usually how it works. Check Quacke's Twitter when he's like, I'm casting this. He won't say it in English, though. There'll be a bunch of weird gibberish will come up on your screen with Quacke attached. You're translate into language. Oh, he's casting. and you understand what he's saying, but you'll watch some pretty, I'm sure, entertaining CS. Probably not
Entertaining, if nothing
very
else,
tactically deep or layered and structured, but definitely
Yeah.
entertaining. That's what low-level CS is for you.
The final of that event was a local team, like one of the teams based very near to me, and I've met them and they're really cool guys. They played with Mail 09 as a stand-in, and they went up against Showmakers, and I think they were down 3-11. They brought it back to 11-11. And one of those guys on that team is starting to approach 40 years old. Yeah. Then they lost anyway. But yeah, it was, one guy. Yeah, the old guy dropped a 1v4 on Nuke. Like those kinds of things are really fun to watch. Like when you kind of know the guys as well.
Veteran performance is what we call that usually.
Yeah.
But for me, a couple of games I've really liked recently that I'm not going to describe in too much detail. I mean, I watched Anubis between Spirit and Eternal Fire. Obviously, it's from the grand final yesterday. It was the best way to start a best of 5. And then the best of 5 went the way best of 5s do, with the team that's quite clearly far better, just kind of winning 3-1, and that's how it works. That's typically BO5s these days. But that was an actually insane map of Anubis. Excellent comeback from Eternal Fire to make it actually happen after going down. I believe at one point they were down 10-3 or something quite alarming. And then they came all the way back up into overtime and then closed it. And it was, thrilling, entertaining. It's one of the most, honestly, entertaining maps for Anubis I think I've ever watched. Like, outright. Outstanding play from individuals like Xantares. Woxic Jota hit some shots. Had some good moments. And really frustrated Donk, I think, for a while. And then, map 2, 3, 4. Donk donked. And, well, Shiro'd. But we'll talk about all that later. That's just the main game from this weekend. Otherwise, also from yesterday or the day before, Amcal played Zero Tenacity, and map 3 was Mirage. Now, I watched that Mirage POV from a certain Amcal player that I don't talk about enough, I think, Molodoy. And let's just say I've got a lot to add on to, elaborate on when it comes to the way he played, certain things I really like, certain details. Essentially, some things that excited me as a guy watching demos. Like, we'll get into it on the small site retakes. But that's been the games I've recently popped out to me as just very fun to watch, very entertaining. Primarily that Eternal Fire game, though. Oh my god, what a match. Up next, we have a question from Quacke. I don't know who this guy is. Sounds ugly, though. Not like our first question asking member. What's the coolest thing on your desk? Do you want to answer your own question first, or...?
I could, because I asked this with a specific thing in mind. I have to go get it, but this is a pretty cool thing. I like Formula 1. A lot of people might know that I make Formula 1 references on this show. I love watching Formula 1. I also used to drive a moped when I was a kid, and for some reason I kept my helmet even well after I sold the moped. And for my birthday, my great uncle asked me if I still had it, and he's made something in his workshop, which I'm going to show now. This is a replica of Ayrton Senna's Formula 1 helmet. Painted by hand, custom ordered stickers and everything. Made out of my old moped helmet. It fits me perfectly. Yeah, it is pretty cool. I could use it for like go-karting and stuff. I'm never going to because it's too nice. And also, I think I dropped and cracked this helmet a couple of times while I was a kid, so I probably shouldn't, but I could, and I'd be the coolest guy on track. But no, I'm not sure if it was in frame, but here it is.
Yeah, very nice. Actually, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
not at all CS related, but I don't think my pick is either. Like, in terms of what's literally on my desk. For me, it's a gift I got at Christmas from my sister. A gift I was not expecting, but ends up being pretty cool. It's this edition of The Hobbit. With obviously original dust cover design from Tolkien, like essentially the images he drew of the world, and also all the original maps inside, and illustrations scattered throughout the book. That chapter starts. Yeah, like this is the one that's easiest to get to. of the Great Eagle.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm a Tolkien nerd. Like, I read Lord of the Rings fairly young, and then reread it a little bit later when I figured out what words meant. You know, I've got a lot of little Tolkien adjacent books lying about in my bookshelf that are like, little encyclopedias of the worlds of Tolkien, characters, etc. So this was a very nice addition because I already had read The Hobbit a couple times, but I think she stole my original Hobbit copy I had, which was just like some paperback, and then she replaced it with something far cooler. So yeah,
that is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, it's perfect to put in my pocket, but I never will because I might damage it.
Yeah, you should never. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's too nice to use properly.
Yeah, hopefully books never stop being made because really awesome editions of books still are like some of my favorite things to have. Like the edition of Foundation, the Foundation trilogy that I just finished reading, was a hardback with like one of those like sort of like a little bookmark that's like attached to it that's made of like soft material. Love those. Like absolutely,
Yeah.
a big fan of that kind of edition of a book. Like not just
There's a lot of really yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do around like art stuff, like books and I'm not a vinyl guy, but there's a really bunch of really cool like special edition vinyls out there as well. Where like you can do stuff with the record, but then also the cover art, and you can have a bunch of stuff around it. Like it's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with that.
Yeah, that's why I used to like CDs a lot as well as a kid. It's like, sure, I'd buy CDs on the bulk, on the cheap, but then when a new CD comes out, like, get me the deluxe edition. Give me the deluxe edition with like the extra CD with more tracks, and then like the book with all the special pictures and all that extra stuff that could come with them. Like those extra thick, chunky versions of CDs with all the extra little details. Those are always very fun to me.
Yeah.
But okay, let's talk about some Counter-Strike. I think we have to. It has been Blast Bounty. It finished with a shocking result of Spirit winning the event and Donk being the MVP. Man, if only someone had predicted that Spirit would be the best team right now and Na'Vi need to beat them before they could overtake them in the power rankings. If only. But let's start with the underdog performances. Because firstly, just to make it to the finals, the underdogs had to surprise everyone. Had to actually beat higher rated competition. A lot of them just straight outplayed the teams they played against. So it wasn't a question of, they fluked it off the back of a few cheesy gimmicky rounds and like they got lucky on a pistol or two. Most of them actually just outplayed the opponents outright. And we came to the quarterfinals and some of that continued. Obviously, we had two of the underdog teams we were rooting for absolutely devastated by visa issues. So that means BetBoom played with Chiron and Nafany back in the roster instead of like Boomich isn't there. We're not as sold on the roster, are we? And Zorte missing meaning they have no AWP. It was pretty screwed. Pretty tough. Heroic, no Tnir, Madden stands in. Anubis was a decent attempt, but afterwards on Nuke, clearly they just weren't up for the fight at all. Some Pius fragged out. Fair enough to some Pius. I think he deserves a lot of credit for how he's played so far in Heroic. But the overall team just wasn't up to snuff without Tnir, with all the changes they've had, all the problems they've had. They just got shut down. But look, Eternal Fire, back-to-back upsets. They beat Vitality, they beat G2, they make the grand final. Have one great map and then, fall apart, but got to give them a lot of credit. They made the underdogs proud, didn't they?
Yeah, I think coming into this quarterfinal, I think we very much split the field into two halves. Because you had G2, Navi, Vitality, and Spirit, and it felt like they're obviously going to win their first games. Eternal Fire was the one which maybe could have upset, and they did. But it definitely felt like we had one layer of favorites and one layer of underdogs. Because even with Eternal Fire, like they looked great, but let's not forget the last time we saw them, they missed the major in the RMR. So like, I had a lot of question marks about Eternal Fire, even if I thought they could be legit. It's very much the needle was very much swinging on them. Pain is another one. BetBoom. I mean, look, we wrote off BetBoom, rightfully so, with the visa issues, but also Heroic. Like, even with Madden as a stand-in, they very nearly take Anubis against Spirit. They very nearly could have won that map. It was 3-9 at the half, and they go up to 7-11, and then they lose 6 in a row, unfortunately. But yeah, one of the underdogs I thought, honestly, maybe it was the most impressive, I think, is Pain, because they put up such a good game against Navi. And
Yep.
I thought it was a really fun watching Mirage. I mean, because the only maps they lose both the maps they lost in overtime, 16-13, and then they take Nuke pretty convincingly against Navi, which is impressive as hell. And then you come into Mirage, and I feel like they played a really good game. They had a game plan, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, but on Pain's CT side, I feel they played a little bit. I think maybe what their detriment is that they don't have this depth in their playbook. Because when it comes down to the very important rounds, there's some gimmicky stuff which happens, and also just their general play is a little bit one-dimensional maybe. Their game plan for the entire CT side was to always not contest mid at all. Just give it to Navi. And that was... I guess the point is that they're going to take it, and what that allowed Pain to do was be more proactive into apps and palace and ramp, which they were, and they won some rounds off of that. Like NQC taking an early peek into apartments, giving them an early 5v4. Yeah, you've lost mid, but you also have a man advantage. It could kind of work, and it kind of did work. Like they were close. They were close to winning Mirage. But then it kind of falls apart, and then they start playing. For the overtime rounds, for the final overtime, like T-side overtime rounds, Big Azera just tries to do the same play he did in the pistol round, just do it again, which doesn't really work out. And I guess that's sort of why they fall in the end. But they brought it really close versus a very competent team. And I think that's really impressive for a team like Pain, who they have ambitions of being very high. Like their ambitions for every major is going to be playoffs. And it's been that way, even if they haven't even really been close. It's been that way for years.
Yeah.
And for this year, they're in a position to make it pretty far. I think they're definitely a team which I could see making the Austin quarterfinal. And they made roster changes. Those are working out pretty well. Davideus is pretty big. They have Snow, who's also performed really, really well in that particular game. Pain, I think, really impressed, depending, relative to where I think most people would have put them at this event. But then, of course, Eternal Fire. Eternal Fire is the big one. They take on Vitality and they win, which it's an upset, but it's a series they won less than half a year ago in a similar land situation in ESL Pro League. Centaurus going huge. They go up against G2, probably the right pick for that semifinal. They win that 2-1. Also including a pretty big goddamn comeback. They were 7-0 down on Anubis, and they bring it back to win 13-11. And Centaurus wasn't even really in that series. It was Wicadia, Wicadia, Woxic, and Jota doing most of the lifting, I feel like. And then you go into the final, and they take a map of Spirit, the first map Spirit have lost in this event and of the year. And it's also involving a huge comeback from 12-4 down to win in overtime.
Yeah, 12-4, that was it. That's crazy. That was so crazy. Yeah. They end up winning 10 rounds straight of just CT play, or 9 rounds straight of CT side. Because they win the opening round of OT as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
They had they won the 2 opening rounds, and then they lose 1-9 for the rest of the half. And it's 3-9 at the half. And then they lose pistol and follow-up in the second half. And at 3-11, that's when I closed the stream. And I said, it's going to be 3-0 Spirit. And then I go do some other stuff. I watch some football. Another team who probably should have won, which didn't, was Spurs yesterday. And then I come back, I'm about to make some dinner, and in my head I was like, I can put the stream on, we should be in the middle of map 2, and I come on and it's Maui Snake talking in the middle segment. I'm like, what? Did they already finish map 2? Was it that big of a stomp? No, it was Eternal Fire winning 16-14. Crazy game. Well done to EF. My point really is that I think all 3 of these teams, Heroic, Pain, and Eternal Fire, showed some stuff which is maybe they could be legit. Maybe they are solidly in the top 5, in the top 10. In the top 15, in the top 10. Eternal Fire maybe approaching the top 5. Let's not forget, they beat FaZe, they beat Vitality, they beat G2. And if nothing else, they made Spirit sweat. These are all top 5 teams. FaZe on the edge, teetering on the edge.
Yeah, no, that's just to jump in on that spoiler. This coming week, Power 10, Eternal Fire were already climbing. They're already 6 or 7.
Yeah.
They're going to be top 5. There's no... I can't put them any lower, especially on the current form. I mean, sure, I can be, if I'm as aggressively analytical as I want to be, not really the point of power rankings, I could say this is Eternal Fire. They are hot and cold, streaky, because they do rely on some amount of individual brilliance. And I think part of that comes down to something that Maui put into words quite nicely. It's essentially Eternal Fire do not come into the game with the best game plan. But they're about as good as anyone when it comes to adapting and overcoming and bringing, the right solution out of it from what they see once they start playing. So, yes, a lack of prep means you go down a lot. Like, your prep not being strong enough means you go down. But the fact that they can call themselves back into it, well, when they're hot and the fraggers are fragging, they've always got that chance to build that comeback. And that's why we see it time and time again. The Total Fire build a massive comeback. All of a sudden, they're unstoppable. All the players are just rotating to the right positions, and it's fantastic to watch. I think, just to touch on another note, something you brought up earlier, the Pain Mirage game, I can speculate as to why they are playing that way against NAVI specifically. And it's firstly, NAVI they were for a large amount of last year. Towards the end of the last year, it wasn't true anymore. But for a good chunk of last year, they were the best Mirage team. And a lot of that came down to the way they took mid control and how they pressured like mid holds and mid ideas so well, with constant underpass lurks, very explosive top mid util sets. They had a lot of focus on that mid control, and it was a big problem for teams to deal with. But what they didn't really have that great of a control of was the extremities. Like, it was very often like maybe a solo JL, solo bit at each end. Like, that was kind of like what they would go for a lot of the time, or it was one or the other if they were more heavily grouped. And you could find timings and, like they did, picks at those extremities. The problem is just foundationally the principle of Counter-Strike. You cannot just give away the main rotation point time and time again for the Ts, just that all that map control just seeded. It just can't be done if you want to be effective in the long term. Like, you have to, at some point, find a way to claim it back, or rely on ridiculous gamble stacks without, like, absolutely insane fucking sight holds to try and not get split to death. So, yeah, there is that aspect of it, why it didn't end up working for them quite as well as you'd have liked, because if that had worked, they probably would have won the map. Instead, it was 7-5, 7-5, I believe, on both T sides. So, yeah, I understand the idea, the rationale, but as just a core principle of CS that cannot be denied, take mid. Every map that has mid, take mid. Like, almost without fail, take mid. The one exception being Vertigo, and that was everyone's least favorite map. But even then...
Yeah, mid wasn't even really mid. It was Ramp that was mid.
Ramp was played like mid, and then teams who treated mid like mid actually used to be pretty good on Vertigo. But whatever. Let's be real. Like, the way Spirit upset Fury at a major to make playoffs was literally... to make semis, I think. Was literally, we just exec mid over and over again. And it just worked. As Furia
That's actually
just so focused on Ramp.
Now that you're saying that, I do definitely remember, like, that was Patsy and Dexter, right? Just going straight out into mid. It was that Spirit lineup, right?
It was that lineup. It wasn't those players. It was primarily
I feel
Siren over the shoulder getting most of the kills. It was weird.
Yeah.
But that was just a gap, just a big hole left in the key rotation point of the map. And that's something I think a lot of people struggled to really get their head around. Because I think it was just because the A site was so weak that teams got really used to just hammering the ramp. But if you took mid on Vertigo, you actually had a lot of ways to exploit the defenses. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the explanation. I think Pain, they've been like fringe. They've been edging my top 10. Let's put it that way, constantly. And I've had to mention it, like, they are like 11. They are like 12. Like, they're close. But they're not quite reaching into it yet. And
that's where they sit on HLTV as well. Yeah, that's where they sit on HLTV as well. They've been like around 12th for half a year, I feel like.
HLTV ranking. The problem is they've been too high, I think, on HLTV ranking for a long time. Like, they've been like 15-ish. And I've always been like, yeah, but we only see them at majors. And most of the time, they don't do very well. The events where they play European competition, they're not exactly outstanding. They struggle to beat Furia with any consistency on LAN. Like, it's a bit of an issue for them. But now they've put together some results, and Davideus has been an absolute godsend for them. So hopefully we see a lot more of this Pain lineup, because they play fun Counter-Strike. Big Uzira is a Don. Davideus has been playing out of his mind. I want to see more. But my main point, Na'Vi have a spirit problem. And I don't mean morale. I obviously mean team spirit. Last year, they played each other quite a bit. Quite a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 series and 1 BO1. Now, the BO1 was 13-2 to Spirit at Shanghai. The only victory NAVI can claim is a quarterfinal at Pro League, where they played Dust 2, they played Mirage. This was back when Mirage was still good. I think September, yeah, they still had the edge on Mirage over most teams. And yeah, they crushed
Especially
Spirit on their Dust 2 pick and then beat them on Mirage comfortably. JL going bonkers. Shiro, the only player with any statistical resistance, but realistically overall, nothing worked for Spirit. And that was kind of Spirit's problem. Honestly, last year they did have periods where they just didn't play like themselves, then other periods where they played really well. This period was on the downside. That's the only time, though, Na'Vi beat them. Every other matchup, Spirit won. So, Katowice, the Copenhagen Major, just a reminder, Copenhagen Major in the 2-0 round, Spirit beat Na'Vi. If Spirit weren't sick going into those playoffs, I swear, but whatever. IEM Dallas, Spirit 2-0. Blast Premier Spring Final, Spirit 3-1. Pro League, as we mentioned, and then Blast Bounty now in this year. Okay, I filtered wrong. I forgot to take out this result. But this year now we start with another 2-0 for Spirit. And I genuinely think Na'Vi have a problem here. They cannot, with any consistency, match up with Spirit. And a lot of it feels like they just don't have the players for it. Like, they really just don't have the players for it. I mean, out-calling them, out-positioning them is one thing, but if no one can shoot hard enough to really face up to them, you're going to struggle to win games. And that was Navi's problem a lot last year when they weren't making playoffs at events. It's like, who do you rely on to just go out and win a game? Like, who can you actually ask for that? Players you have shown the capability for it. Like, JL had the major run. Bit has the ceiling for it and has map-dependent, pop-offs. We saw Ancient actually in this series. Bit went huge. But overall, they just don't have that kind of firepower with any consistency. And it's all well and good when everything's executing perfectly. But if you're not executing perfectly and you don't have two of your players fluking a result for you, Spirit have so much firepower, they're just gonna shit on you. And most of that comes from Spirit just having Donk and Shiro. And that says a lot about the level of talent on Na'Vi. That's just two guys. Could essentially be too much for you to handle time and time again. I mean, I can get into Chopper maybe being underrated as a caller. Whatever, people hate that idea. But those fraggers on Na'Vi are just never there enough to actually challenge them. And so, yeah, those key double kills that open rounds and close them at the same time and time again, they go Spirit's way. And Na'Vi just can't handle it. So I think they do have to address that at some point. There should... Look, when their title window closes, as I described it, April, they need to start looking for a new player.
There's another component that is, I think we saw a bit of a different Shiro for this event than we have done
I've got that in the overtime. We can talk about it now.
Yeah, because that's also part of Navi's problem in that case, is that Shiro is just a bit of a better player for 2025, I think, so far at least, than he was last year. So they already had a Spirit problem, now it's even more difficult, especially when you have Wonderful on the other end of the Opti-Will. And he could lose he could lose an Opti-Will against anyone. Like, I am not.
That is the meme, but it's kind of true, isn't it? Like, he can lose an Opti-Will to anyone.
Yeah, look, they've always had a bit of a Spirit problem. I remember the ESL Pro League series, which was when I was on the double swing and I picked Spirit because they had two easy games and then they had Navi in their bracket, and I was like, oh, Spirit are definitely in the semifinals, so it was a slam dunk pick.
Yeah, it was quite a long road they had to go, didn't they? They had to go from all the way at the back of the playoffs all the way through, and that was my counterpoint. It was like, yeah, but they need to keep winning. That's just hard, right? Statistically, even if they are better, it is just harder to bet on them to do that.
Yeah, but they also had I think it was Furia and Imperial, and then they had Navi, who they had 100% win rate against. So it was very much like, no, this is easy. There's no way it happens. And then
it happens.
Yeah, it happens. They have a problem with that. I'm not really sure what to think about Navi right now. JL is probably the guy you would look to close these sort of games. JL and Bit, and JL wasn't really there at all. Their Opera is weak. Yep. Emma had a pretty good event. Like Emma was doing pretty good, but he's not somebody I expect to be able to go head to head with Donk and win consistently.
No, that's not really his role either. Like,
no, but
whilst he does take a lot of openings, it is more of a, find an opening kill, like through a bit of a not slower necessarily, but like a more set up sort of idea. And it's like off the back of it, we know exactly how we're going to execute. We know what the spaces are. That's why Immer's, shocking statistics is always his round, like his kills per round win, and his kills that lead to a 1 round on the opening side. It's always extremely high. Like Wimpstage over an opening kill for this event, 86.4%. That's the Immer average, right? All year round. It's just his rating and his number of total opening kills found is what varies, fluctuates violently, really, event to event, map to map. And that was his weakness. But no, his kills are so key, and they're able to do so much off the back of them. But man, he doesn't find them enough. And it's unrealistic to expect him with the mechanics he has to go and just headshot Donk over and over again. It's just not going to happen. And we're going to merge into this, but the MVP level Shiro, man, we kind of talked about how his clutches are always kind of the same, and that you need him to be more like actively trading as well to be as impactful as you want him to be if you're Spirit. Well, this event, just look at the trading statistics. Just look at how he played against Eternal Fire, how he played against Heroic. It wasn't that great against Navi, like a bit of a quieter series there, but my God, in that grand final, I think like it's hard to like not look at Donk and be like, that guy's winning you the game. But when you look at the stats at the end of it and you've paid attention to like mid to late round, you're like, holy shit, Shiro was putting in work. He was finding every kind of kill, had a few clutches too. Really impressed with him. I remember a 1v3, I believe he had against Eternal Fire. Yeah, he did. On Mirage, he had a 1v3.
The one where he jumped.
Yeah, he actually had a decent performance, like a very strong performance. MVP level is how I described it in the show notes, and I think with a 1.4 rating, that is true. Sure, it's got sub 0.5 DPR, so, swings and roundabouts. Balance it out in your head, how good he actually was. But this is clearly a much stronger level we saw at almost any event in 2024 for Shiro. And if he's going to play like that all year, alongside, the casual 0.9 KPR Donk, it's the year of Team Spirit, and then some.
Yeah. I think a lot of hoppers might have been looking at Monacy over the winter, because I feel like we're seeing a bit more proactive play out of a whole bunch of hoppers.
They're starting to figure it out, right? They're starting to be less scared of getting hard swung. They're starting to figure out which off angles they should play, which nades they can throw. Like, all these little details are starting to get figured out, I think, by the AWPers.
Yeah, exactly. And if Wonderful doesn't start doing the same thing, Navi aren't even going to win an event at all in 2025, I don't think. So, now Shiro started doing it. We're gonna see what happens. But yes, Shiro, I wouldn't have been upset if he won the MVP.
I would have, but yeah.
No, I think it would have been fair. They're close enough where I could see it.
In rating, yes. In the God King of all stats, KPR, no, it's not. So for me, it's pretty easy to split the hairs when it comes to one guy killed everyone, the other guy didn't die. It's like, I'll pick the guy who killed everyone. That's how his rating was built.
They killed as many people in the final though, so Shiro was better in the final.
Oh, and good thing there were 2 other matches before then.
I would have been overly upset. It was very close. If Donk doesn't exist, Shiro's the MVP.
And that'll be the case forever. It's like
that will
playing
be the case forever.
Yeah, it's like playing last year on G2 with Monacy. If y'all win the event, Monacy's going to be the MVP every time, almost every time. Like, it's just a guarantee. Like, not only the kills he gets in total, but the kills, the way he gets them, he's always going to end up with the MVP. So, yeah, Donk, obvious MVP, absolutely amazing. I have more to talk about though, because I watched Vitality Eternal Fire. I was watching it back. I was in an Uber. Because usually I wouldn't be in an Uber. I'm not that kind of bourgeois individual, Ignore the quarter zip and the voice. I'm actually very working class, very down to earth. Tube only kind of man. And for some annoying reason, there was a ventilation issue in the tunnel, or some other bollocks, like just turn the fan on, you idiots, but whatever. That made the Elizabeth line just entirely stop. And so I had to get off at Woolwich, got in an Uber to North Greenwich, and in that Uber ride, I was finishing up watching this demo, this match back, this VOD of Eternal Fire Vitality. And I was watching Anubis, scrutinizing what the hell I'm seeing. And what I realized what I was watching is a team utterly shit itself. Like, I don't mean, they kind of threw a couple rounds. No. They had, at least in that first half, a dozen, not first half, first map, at least a dozen free kills they just missed. Between Rops, Mezzi, and ZywOo, he doesn't get a pass. He still doesn't get a pass from me. He never will. But I watched ZywOo, easy tripwire shot after easy tripwire shot. You fucking missed, and that let people die. That just caused people to die. Like, straight up. One of them, it caused you not save your AWP, which is less important. But more importantly, so many just fucked rounds where he's just whiffed shots. But more importantly, Rops missed so many sitters, like flanking out of A, just on the canal players. He's got, the swing advantage, a couple, like 3 extra shots basically off before they even start shooting back at him. Somehow whiffing it. Get in deathmatch, son. Mezzi blunders about 3 or 4 different rounds positionally early on their CT side, just blocking teammates, straight up team killed one teammate, but also just being caught in transition, caught in the open, time and time again. They absolutely threw that game away, and for me it's maddening, because this Vitality team allegedly has got rid of its toxic element and is now ready to roll. So far they're their own worst enemy. They still are. That hasn't changed. A lot of the time we said that last year, it was like, why are they whiffing shots here? Why is ZywOo choking in this big moment? When we actually need him to hit a couple more shots, he's not quite got it. This was like an arena worry for him. And like we mostly end up having to be critical if they went out in groups, they rarely ever did, of the other riflers. This game was pure that. It was just the riflers screwing everything up time and time again, and then ZywOo missed his shots as well. But more importantly, holy crap, they gifted this one to Eternal Fire. The fact that it was, in the end, 13-9, way closer than it ever should have been. I don't know how much you watched of this game, but I was peeved. I was in the back of that Uber, just furious.
Yeah, I didn't watch anything. I don't think I've seen a single Vitality map this week. No, I'm not feeling too confident. Just looking at the stats, I'm not feeling too confident about my thought that Vitality might be a top candidate for Team of the Year. It's early days, but it does feel like something is not quite clicking, even with Rops in there.
It feels like, to put it, the Rops specific, it feels like they're forcing it a bit. It feels like it's kind of being forced. Like, we really want Rops to work, so we're going to throw 100 flashes for him and set up 13 different pushes every single CT half. But then on T side, where he's just like kind of AFK, you're like, we still haven't actually meshed. We're just forcing it on half the game. Yeah.
So I don't have a lot to say. We'll see how it goes. They have a pretty tough group in Katowice, which is going to be the next outing. They have new FaZe, which is still. I think they went out too early to have any real comments about FaZe. I'm not really sure how much you could get out of Elish as in just the few days they've had to practice, especially going up against Kingt.
Yeah. So they open their opening game, they beat M80, but they lose a map, and that was a bit worrying considering it's M80 with a stand-in Keto. But Elish plays really well. I remember him fragging nicely. I'm like, okay, whatever, cool start. It's a win.
It looked like a complexity game, just statistically.
It kind of did, except Brokey is Brokey, not Holzerk. But then they get 2-0 by Pain, and honestly, my main takeaway from that match was the best player on the server was Chilean. Like, that's weird.
Yeah,
that's worrying. So no, I don't have much to take away from that loss.
No,
like to analyze, because I didn't take that much time to look into it. There was a lot of games on at that time. But no, I think FaZe are a team that you don't want to face right now. But to be honest, it's going to be rough either way. Like, if you look at their group, it's like, what's the other option? If you switch players from teams from the other group, you get to face Mongols the first time anyone's seen them in 2025. I'll take the risk on the FaZe. I've got some actual demos on. Like, there's no better option.
Then you've got G2. G2, like, if Vitality end up going down to the lower bracket, G2 also have a chance of going down to the lower bracket. You have Falcons. I think Falcons could be kind of dangerous in a lower bracket run. This group A is a group where I can definitely see every single team losing one game at some point and then making a lower bracket run straight into the playoffs. Just because.
Yeah.
because face or face, they're gonna do that. Falcons, I think, also could be like they're definitely the kind of team who could get just blindsided in the first game, and then Nico locks in and starts going huge. And G2 as well, it's the same thing. They could just get out tacticked in the first game if they get an unlucky matchup from the play-in, and then m0NESY just decides fuck it. And then Heavy God was really good so far, and MOUZ as well. All three of those just lock in, just make a low bracket run. And I don't really see any of them going through as favorites, like going through the upper bracket. So anyway, it's Katowice is going to be fun because for that reason, because we have a lot of teams who can do. Again, the needle kind of swings. I'm not really sure where to put them. Vitality is one of them. So I guess this was always going to be the case when we had Blast effectively being a first taste of things. I'm not really confident in saying anything about the season so far or how things are looking. But yeah, Vitality definitely. I think honestly, out of the top 4 teams in or the top 4 seeded teams, the favorites in Blast Bounty, Vitality is definitely the one I'm probably the most worried about at the moment.
Yeah, because I'm going to be honest. As much as I do say Navi is a spirit problem. Vitality have a vitality problem. Yeah. they can't. They haven't figured themselves out yet. And G2, as much as I do think G2 do not play very pleasing CS a lot of the time, they still have too many individuals to have a really discount. Like, they could have gotten out called by BetBoom entirely. But when m0NESY puts up a 1.95 rating, the kind of shots he's hitting, the plays he's making just by himself.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And then Heavy God he's fucking Heavy God. Like, he's probably one of the best anchoring riflers we have right now. Combined with m0NESY, who's been one of the best opening riflers we've had. Yeah, what are you supposed to do against that G2? Sometimes they're just going to overwhelm you. So, no, I don't think Vitality have that option, especially when ZywOo has a quiet map. Like, there's no one else who's going to magically carry. Like, as much as we value a player like FlameZ for playing tough roles very well, showing up in the big matches consistently last year, we're not talking about a 1.3 rating. We're talking about, he averages like a 1.1 something in playoffs or in arena games. He's great relative to role, relative to expectation, level of difficulty, the moment. He's not actually able to carry the entirety of the dead weight of the roster through a series, which is something basically 3 players on G2 can do. Like, I'm going to be honest. I can see Heavy God carrying a map. I can see MOUZ carrying multiple maps just off the T side. I can see m0NESY. m0NESY can carry an entire series just by himself. So Vitality do not have that sort of leeway for just this, mislocked gears, mismatched. Like, they're not intertwined. They're just clashing against each other a bit for now. Hopefully it doesn't lead to another toxic element. Oh, we gotta get rid of the toxic guy type situation they had last year, where it did kind of feel like now we're talking about like a posthumous excuse for the roster not quite delivering. Until they start winning with this roster, that's all that remains. It's just an excuse that they needed to give, like for PR, but I don't really buy into.
No.
All right, let's a final round of OT. If you need anything else to get off your chest, anything else that jumped out at you from the Blast Bounty land section, or have we covered everyone in enough depth?
I think we've done Heroic you could talk more about, but honestly,
we have already to death in every show at this point.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
And with Madden there's not really too much use. I feel like once again, Katowice is a real test. They're going into the play in there, and that's for next week. When we've actually had the games.
Yeah, when the play-in, they'll have Tanir. He's got his visa for Kado. Let's see what they can play like. I think they'll be one of the most fun teams. I picked them as my underdog, as the first pick of the double swing for Katowice. I was just straight out the gates, like, yeah, give me them. The Katowice play-in, that is. Yeah, great episode, actually, by the way, with Trav. You guys should check it out if you haven't. But all right, let's talk about some small sites. We got some small site retakes to take down, and I'm going to let you begin with your... let's just say your cosplay as the Fun Police. A man from Russia, inspired by the plight of young men from across the Atlantic, has for some reason caught your ire and led to a bit of drama on Twitter.
Yep. It's the Kraddening, Armageddon. It's been I got sent a screenshot in a Discord server earlier this week, and it was from 9 Pandas ongoing official against Monty, I think it was. or Perivision, and it was a screenshot of a deagle, and it had a skin with a bunch of little sticker crafts, and it spelled out a profanity, a racial slur was spelled out on the sticker. You have seen the craft in your own matchmaking games. You have, all of you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I've seen some people with it.
It is on the official ESL broadcast. Like a couple of centimeters below, it says, brought to you by Intel. This doesn't happen a lot of the time. I
brought to you by
Intel. Yeah. So yeah, it was Krad. It was Krad's deagle. I played back the tape and I was like, okay, yeah, it's his deagle. Like, he buys it at the start of the round. He did it twice on 2 different maps. And I was like, could it be like some cache issue with the observer? Like, is this... Because I've seen stuff where, like, some cache issue in the game makes it so that, like, a skin from a previous game gets brought into your game client side. And I was like, could it be something like this? Well, it could be. But yeah, then I just posted a tweet and I put the picture out and then I went to sleep. And then I woke up and there were a lot of replies. A lot of people thought it was funny. Like, it was reposted a bunch of times because a lot of people thought that, like, wow, how can this be on an official broadcast? This should lead to a suspension. And yeah, he got a 2-week suspension. And a lot of people were also willing to die on the hill that the N-word is not bad. As much as I call out various teams and different players for being shit, most people usually don't care. But as soon as I say this, yeah. Anyway, I didn't care much about this. To be entirely honest, I didn't care much until people were very upset with me. But yeah, Krad got a 2-week suspension with this, and he went out and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know because I play left hand and I couldn't read it." And then, a couple of hours later, there's a picture. Pickle posted a video where, like, he was on stream, literally talking pre-game, literally talking about his new sticker craft that he thought was so funny.
Yeah, he bought this. He bought the gun, and it had great stickers on it. They're beautiful stickers.
Yeah, check out what it says. He said,
"Yeah,
I'm gonna play right hand only for the rest of with this deagle." And like, he kept talking about this. So yeah, so ESL extended his ban because they knew he had lied about it. Now he's got a month ban. And yeah, I thought it was really funny. A lot of people thought somebody threatened me in DM, said they were gonna beat me up if I ever went to an IEM event. I think there's about 150 or 200 replies on that thing telling me I'm an idiot for. Some people thought I was trying to ruin this man's career. And I wasn't. I literally just thought it was a funny picture. I thought it was a funny picture, and I knew it was going to lead to something. I didn't. But anyway, what I'm going to say is I made one offhand tweet I didn't care about, and this guy got a 1-month ban. I'm just going to say, Michał Slowinski, nothing. Face it, Darwin, just a warm-up act. I'm the guy. I am the ban. Like, the potential I have. Effort relative to outcome. All of you pro players, watch your ass. I'm coming for you.
That's the threat of the investigative journalist. You saw what I did with one screenshot?
One little tweet. Imagine what I can do with a whole expose, with a whole feature article. Imagine what I can do.
Oy, oy, oy. Yeah, because you said it to me, and I was just like, he's a pro CS player. This is the most Counter-Strike thing I've ever seen. Just an N-word craft on a deagle.
Yeah.
Like, to be fair, like, I always joke about this, but I literally joined a matchmaking game last night with my friends. 2 of us, 2 randoms. Well, 3 of us, 2 randoms. And just the first thing is just this guy with a very thick Eastern European accent goes, "Hello," and then drops the slur. And I'm just like,
yeah,
brilliant. Really?
Yeah.
Welcome to Counter-Strike. And it's just like, it's become such a nothing thing to us. And I assume it's even worse in that part of the world where they're just throwing it around casually, thinking it's funny. To where you just didn't think about it as a thing that could cause offense or cause problems with sponsors. And yeah,
because it is sponsors.
Stupid, but like,
it is sponsors. I particularly don't care about it. Like, I didn't make the tweet because I was like looking out for the billion-dollar corporation owned by the Saudi crown. Like, I didn't care about it that much. But I knew that, like, this is gonna be fun. Could be some fun Twitter engagement. And then of course ESL are gonna see it when, like, Osni posted it, CS2 News posted it. It was on Jake Lucky. The Score have posted about it now. Everybody, ESL were gonna see it. They brought it up, and like, they are gonna care so much about this. So, it was gonna happen either way if I tweeted or not. But yeah,
it was funny. Just to see the responses. The tweet blowing up and some of the responses. I was just like,
Yeah, because like Intel,
Ah.
DHL, and all of these other like mainstay ESL sponsors, I don't know if they do it anymore, but it wasn't a long time ago. The U.S. Air Force sponsored ESL
Oh, yeah.
ESL events. Yeah, I don't know if they have that deal going anymore, but yeah, it's like this is a big deal for sponsors.
To be honest, it
As
was
much
always
as
funny
like
to me. It's like Pro League sponsored by US Air Force, cut to a desk of 6 people, half in the bag, it seems. Just like talking about absolutely fucking anything. Edging smokes and exploding onto bomb sites. And you're like, oh
yeah,
yeah, this is what the Air Force want. This is
this
what
is
they
what the
want to
Air Force
associate
was. This
with.
is like exactly the marketing they needed.
To be fair, yeah.
Yeah,
They might be all up for it.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's been my week.
Yeah, you seem to have a lot of fun with that. I just
Yeah,
I just asked you why you're being the fun police, to be honest. Like,
yeah. I wouldn't like if this was a Reddit post where like somebody said, "Oh, Krad was in my matchmaking game and he had this deagle." Nobody
who
would care.
cares in matchmaking? Like, yeah,
I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care.
but have
This
it
was
in an
sponsored.
official was just dumb.
Yeah,
So dumb.
so fucking dumb.
But yeah, that was amusing. That was quite the series of events. Ah, I have something also that involves watching demos though. Well, you didn't watch a demo. You got sent a screenshot from a live stream, but still, it involves in-game stuff. I would like to make a case as to why watching demos is really fun. Because usually a lot of people don't bother because it's boring. And I'm sure if you ever, like I did back in the day, loaded up a Mezzi Overpass demo and sat through 15 T-side rounds of him sat at the bottom of connector doing nothing for 50 seconds minimum a round, you would have also gotten pretty sick and tired of demos. You probably didn't really see the point. You're like, just get me an observer. Let me go from player to player. Why would I watch a POV? Well, Molodoy plays for Amcal. They played Zero Tenacity over the weekend, and map 3 on Mirage. It's a deciding map. You need a big performance. Molodoy goes absolutely ballistic. And sure, I could have thrown up a frag movie right now. Like he drops 27 kills in regulation, a bunch of nice combat, like quick scopes. Could have chopped it up, but instead, I'm just gonna show off like a little detail that I found in a demo that, like, sure, maybe you could wait for like Nart to find these things and tell you about them. And I'm not saying this is the first time anyone's ever done this, but it's this really nice smoke pop that he does in window after getting, blocked off. Molly's behind the boxes, right clicks it. It's on screen right now for all the viewers. Pops open the right edge of the smoke. He doesn't take a lick of damage from it, from his HE. And then he's able to kill someone at top mid. It's glorious. It's so perfect. And that's the kind of thing that I think makes demo watching genuinely very, very fun. It's not just about seeing frag movie highlights. It's about seeing the little things that a pro player does to give himself an edge, and also how delightfully executed it is with team. Because a detail most of you, I'm sure, probably missed. If you checked, there's a flash assist from AW. There's a flash that comes in that pops pretty much half a second after his nade pops the smoke open, meaning that he can actually stay a little longer on that peak because he's got flash support on it. And that's how he's able to get the kill, flicking up to the player jumping behind the boxes. It's so much fun to watch games like this, watch players pull out little tricks, little ideas, and obviously do it as a team. Obviously, like solo players, you can watch pug demos, but the combination of the flash is what makes that cool to special. Like it takes it at that extra level. So Quack, I'm not sure how many demos you watch. Probably not that many, I'm going to be honest.
No, occasionally I pick one up, yeah.
But this is one that I think a lot of people should watch. I've been ranting and raving about Molodoy this entire year. He is so far my prospect of the year. He's been actually outstanding. He's beaten everyone, at least head-to-head, in terms of his fragging output that he's come across. Like he outfragged Kyosuke in their Spirit Academy series they lost earlier in the week. He's done everything that he can, and part of it is not just his shooting, it's this creativity. If you watch that demo in its entirety, he gets like a double kill on both pistols. You get basically his full skill set on display. He also gets a couple nice AK frags. He's a very complete modern AWP player who I think a lot of people should pay attention to.
Yeah, he is. It is fun watching demos. I just don't have the patience for it. I do not. No, okay, look, yeah, it is fun to watch demos. The times I do it, I feel like it's really rewarding, even if sometimes the findings I get aren't very conclusive. It's just fun to watch CS. and like watch. When you're watching a POV, it's very much like you put yourselves in their heads, and like you have all of these extra power. Like you can pause and think, what would I do in this situation? What should I do in this situation? And then you watch them do either exactly that, and you feel really smart, or they do something else which works or doesn't work. Like you learn a lot about this. And this is how you learn about Counter-Strike. So, yeah. And Molodoy is insane. So
yeah, Molodoy he's the only reason I think Amcal buys that DMS roster. I'm sorry. That buyout is Molodoy's buyout. That's not the team buyout. I don't care. A lot of people are like probably fans of Kalash, fans of Smet. I've seen a lot of fans of AW. It's a Molodoy thing. That team is just Molodoy. Like, that guy is such a beast. And you'll see it. If in the coming year someone needs an AWPer desperately at tier 1, who needs a Russian speaker, he's going.
Yeah.
That's going to be him. It has to be. Every damn time. Right. We have a little bit of eternal shuffling to do. There's not... It's quieted down. Obviously, the main off-season has been and gone. But we start with what was the biggest story of the sort of, I guess, week. It was roughly last week. And that was MOUZ, with their very confusing series of events.
Yes.
So we start with the benching of Shuhei, which to me was literally out of nowhere. Like, I saw them lose that series in the openings of Blast, and I'm like, oh, okay. Bit of a shit start. And then this comes down. I'm like, is this directly related? Is this... What's going on behind the scenes? And the official message we get is a difference in visions between fuck knows who, but I'm assuming Shuhei and everyone else. And we end up with Brolan calling and the addition of Spinks to fill out the roster. Quacke, you're our delusional Swede. You're usually, hyping up Swedes, talking about how great they are. How, yes, his 1.03 as an AWP IGL is very productive, and they should keep whatever his name is in this scenario, because there's so many examples of that over the last 2 years. Do you think Brolan as an IGL is a thing that was ever planned? Or was it just, we have got an ultimatum from Shuhei, someone's got to do it, and he's kind of old?
The timeline I found out about this is that, or found out, the timeline I've tried to piece together myself is, last fall, we had a lot of roster rumors as early as, I think, October or November even. Jimmy was linked to Falcons, and we knew Spinks was moving, we knew Nico was moving. We knew like it was a possibility he moved into any team, Vitality, Falcons, G2 phase. And at some point in late December, we found out Jimmy had said no to all of those, and also said no to Falcons as Monis was moving. So Jimmy was staying.
Yeah.
And it looked like everything was going to be fine and dandy with MOUZ. And it seems that way. Nothing really happened over the New Year's. One thing which was added to the timeline was that Nell said that apparently MOUZ wanted to... he said 3 weeks ago, and if you extrapolate that, literally, it means around New Year's, 2nd of January or something. They wanted to replace Brolan with Spinks, apparently. But, if that was the thing 3 weeks ago, or 3 weeks earlier... the next thing which happens in my timeline is that on January 8th, Brolan was on a Swedish interview on a Swedish CS Awards show. And one of the closing questions was like, oh yeah, it looks like you're going to get to do it again next year with the same teammates. And he, like, no hesitation, smile on his face, just went, yeah, a lot of people thought we wouldn't, but yeah, we're sticking together. That was the thing. January 8th, this roster is complete. Nothing has changed. If you are to believe Brolan face value, which I think you can. He's usually pretty candid in interviews and stuff. January 11th, Jimmy renews his contract, and then they play the gaming as a bet boom where they lose, and then Shuhei gets benched earlier this week, 22nd or 21st of January or something. So what the hell is going on? Yeah, it just looks super weird to me. And then Spinks gets announced like a day after or two. So it just seems super weird to me, and I've seen a bunch of different timelines. We also know MOUZ were contacted by Falcons Falcons wanted to get their core, which probably would have included Sui, Torji, and probably Brolan. Or it was probably going to be Jimmy at that point. But if Jimmy had said no, then, because we knew before they landed on the Heroic core, we also knew from the same report they also looked at FaZe and they also looked at MOUZ, but they got nothing worked out there. So some theories I've seen floated about is that my personal theory is that they had some issues even in December before we went into the off season, and what the MOUZ CEO has said afterwards sort of does seem to indicate that. He said because he did an interview and he said, the director or whatever, some sort of corporate guy. He said that we were hoping that we could, to have a good vacation, regain some energy, and then push through, which was a really weird wording for me. Like, push through what? Like, push through the end of Shui's contract, or what was going on? Like, I don't know what that means. And then he also said something like, "Oh yeah, now we're just focusing with this new roster. We have no transfer distractions and stuff." So, a theory I've seen, which I think is pretty good, this from some friends of mine, was maybe like the conflict was created internally by some players even entertaining the idea of a phase move, or some players blocking a phase move. Like, maybe Shui said no to Falcons, and while Jimmy and Torji wanted to go, or something like that, and that creates internal conflict. That creates, like, now we're sort of forced to stick together. Could be something like that. And there's also, like, the players who wouldn't be going to Falcons, like Xerxen, might have had some sort of issue here. Another timeline I've seen is, like, if it was true Brollan was going to be replaced by Spinks, maybe it's something like Brollan basically made his case and convinced the team that, like, no, you should keep me, but and you should keep me as a caller. I think I can bring this to the table. And maybe he's been put up against the wall, and then, like, he's forced himself into the calling position and, like, pushed Shui out. I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure I believe it. Maybe it's just Shui. Maybe Shui was the guy who wanted out. Like, maybe Shui was the guy who wanted to get out of the team, and he wanted to go a different direction, which the team or the leadership didn't agree with. There's so many different ways this could have swung. We don't know anything. There was the clip in Polish from his stream a couple of, I think it was before the Betboom game, which was cut in a way which really takes it out of context, because everything he says in that clip is very vague, and, like, it was about him having a matchmaking ban, like a cooldown in matchmaking, and he doesn't actually mention any of his MOUZ teammates. He doesn't actually do that. He says, like, "Oh, your teammate stabbed you in the back." Like, yeah, they reported him or something. Like, I don't know if that's true. That's what Shui is saying, and I choose to believe him, because the clip really doesn't, or the translation of the clip I've seen doesn't actually really imply MOUZ were part of that conversation at all. It's super weird. But he's out of MOUZ. Not sure what's happening there. Spinks is in. It fits really well, because Brollan gets to slide into Shui's positions, which are preferable to him. He gets to be a space taker on T side. He gets to be a rotator on CT side. Perfect for him. Spinks moves into Brollan's positions, which he was basically playing already, 1-for-1. So that way it really works out. The only question mark is, why the hell is Brollan the caller? I think, honestly, it's super weird.
Yeah, why the hell is, honestly, you'd ask that question whoever ended up calling, though. That's the problem.
It's just the thing that I could pick. Xerxen is the guy I've heard as being the vocal guy. He's the guy I've heard as being, like, the guy who maybe second calls on this team a bit. He's the guy, I think Flamesy, it was an offhand comment, but he said on AGL TV Awards, he was like, yeah, I could see Xerxen being an IGL someday. Like, this is, like, maybe that could have worked out. Like, it's you would say that either way, but yeah, Brollan is maybe, out of all of them, maybe the least qualified, I feel like, because he does not feel like the guy. I don't know. We don't know what happens in TeamSpeak. Maybe he is, like, a natural leader type, and that's what makes it work. But yeah, it's gonna be a tactical downgrade, definitely. It's a firepower upgrade for sure. There's 5 really cracked players on this team now, but it's definitely a tactical downturn, at least for now. How high Brollan can reach long term, I don't think he's ever gonna stack up to Shui 1-for-1. But if he can get close, then maybe this is, a team which is going to make, maybe this is a move which is going to make the team better long term. I don't know. Cyclone's probably part of it as well. I don't know if I've seen any I haven't really seen any comments from him about that. We're probably going to get that when Katowice rolls around, because that's when we're going to have all of them in the same room. Roster lock is obviously a factor. So Xalex is playing Katowice, because Spinks couldn't get in there. It's a whole thing, and I don't really know what to make of it, and I think we need more information before we really make something. But a lot of things sound like there's been internal issues But it also sounds like they literally judged it on one game. Because the way that interview with Play.gg went with the MOUZ director or whatever, it sounds like, yeah, we went on break hoping that this would happen, and then when we came back, it didn't. That sounds like you're judging it off of just the Bet Boom series and nothing else.
I'm sure, obviously, the last year of, not winning real events has been a large factor. And for me, the overall fit for Spinks, if you think, as you explained, like in theory, who plays where, it's probably fine. It's just, I need to be convinced that I believe in Brolan as a caller, and that I believe the problems in his team could ever be put on Shuhei directly. Like, I need to see, like I've pointed out that at some point, losing in playoffs time and time and time again, I can only blame Xerxes so much. I do also have to spread some of that to other players. But the biggest issue didn't really feel like it was Shuhei getting out-called or anything like that. So maybe it's one of those situations where it's like roster fit in terms of culture, in terms of how the team are functioning together, that's become a problem, because they've been, I mean, it's hard to believe because they've been around each other so long, and like they came up together.
Yeah.
You'd think it'd be fine, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's going to be something that's going to come out just to explain it. Like, personal falling out would be the most logical explanation to me. I do not see it as quite simply being, oh, we didn't think he was the right caller for us. We needed a better IGL, so we're going to go with Brolan for now. Like, that can't be right. You'd have known that prior to the off-season changes, prior to the new season starting. I don't get it. I don't get what's going on.
No, it seems super weird. Like, there's so many different ways this could have happened as well. I think if you just theory crafting different things, it could have been, somebody pushed Shui out. It could have been Shui wanted to leave. It could have been maybe the team wanted Brolan gone, and Shui was the guy who like blocked it. And in the end, then it ends up being sort of like a kick.
Yeah, as a thank you, they kick him.
It's like Shui vetoes it, and in the end, it culminates in, well, we could kick Shui and put Spinks in, like when they're working different combinations. It's super weird. Shui, I think as well, like he had offers over the off season. I think it was reported that he said no. I don't know which ones they would have been. Falcons definitely would have been one of them. MOUZ maybe were the ones who blocked it as well. We don't really know these things. I'm very excited to hear the first interview. Like, if HLTV don't get an interview with Cyclone at some point in Katowice, I'm going to be very disappointed. If there's no interview with Roland. And I'm wondering, look, we actually kind of have to talk about this. Shui has so many different ways he could go now. And there's an obvious one, which is G2. Which they won't do.
No, they're great. I mean, G2, they've got such a good coach, such a good IGL. It's why when everyone frags out, they still lose and don't dominate. Despite all the talent, they just can't win. Despite how good their IGL and coach are, it's just, darn. Yeah, Nico, explain that one to me last year, how you had the number 2 player in the world, you were a top 5 player, and you didn't win shit of any value. Oh, it's fucking, your coach is so good.
Can I just say, G2 had 4 out of the 7 top players in Blessed Bounty. And they didn't win the event.
Well, yeah, but that's just like, people have pointed that out, and I'm just like, I don't want to be a cunt, but like, that's just statistically what happens when you beat a team 13-3, 13-2, because you've got to play a team with 2 stand-ins. Like, it's an irrelevant number.
Point being, they have a bunch of good players, and they're missing a caller.
Yes, what matters is that, yes, you go into an event, you go into a match with Eternal Fire, and despite having, in theory on paper, at worst, 2 of the best 3 players on the server. And then in practice, Xantares had an off game. You weren't beaten by Xantares. You were beaten by a combination of Maja, Woxic, and Jota, basically. Like, and Wakadia in terms of the fragging. Like, that's what beat you. Yeah. That's not acceptable. Like, that's just not acceptable. So it doesn't matter the actual statistics coming out at the end of the event. Like, the ratings, we were top 4 of the top 7. Yeah, whatever. You played Bet Boom in the opening quarterfinal game. They have 2 stand-ins. You smashed them. The numbers are inflated. What matters is that they shouldn't be taking that kind of loss to Eternal Fire. If they had the calling and structure behind them, they do. Now, we do have to give them the same leeway. I think we've given a lot of teams of like the whole, new player thing. Like they are, for them, it's not so much the player they've added needing to be integrated. We've seen already, Heavy God knows what he's doing. He's performing. The problem has been, how do you then rebalance the roles with MOUZ, and also how do you find that second voice that Nico was, that construction of rounds? And so far, they haven't got it. And it's not like we know they had a great caller last year. Like, this is all carryover as well from last year, where we know we were critical of the coaching and calling year round, because the first 4 or 5 months were probably the lowest I've seen Hooksy in a long time.
Yeah.
In terms of what he's actually doing when he's on the team, like on the server, next to his teammates, his box was gone. But
yeah,
no, a team like G2 needs an IGL change. But honestly, I think quite importantly, they need a coach change. They just don't have that guaranteed like prep coming into games where like they're going to win this map every time. Like this is the map they're going to pick and they're going to win it. I mean, they've been heavily relying on Dust 2, I feel like, recently to get wins. Yeah, that's what they want against Stonefire as well. And it's starting to look like they could be a good Dust 2 team, but so much of that comes down to individuals, like just having excellent, just not viable fit, but like positions they're able to lock down. I mean, you'll usually get the best version out of Hunter on the CT side of Dust 2. You're able to get a lot out of MOUZ in a lot of different places on Dust 2. Heavy God is a very comfortable D2 player as well. You just have the individuals for it. It's not like you can't break them in terms of how they play it. The setups are very breakable. It's just heroics usually that save them. And I remember a classic example being Hunter, B-site Dust 2, a split's coming in for the 4th time in a row because the mid hold was so flimsy. It's him and Snacks. Snacks ain't going to do shit, but Hunter gets a triple kill with an M4A4 against AKs. I'm talking he's double headshot motherfuckers. And they're just not able to shoot him fast enough. You're like, that's a crazy off chance, like random event more than anything else. They're not that solid on it in terms of how they're set up.
No.
So, no, they do need more than an IGL change. Then ideally, I'd want a coach change before I'd want an IGL change.
Yeah. But, okay, so we have some other landing points, and I just want to quickly float these. Do you see a mid-season move for Shui for any of these teams? I'm going to start just very quickly. FaZe.
No.
Liquid.
Yes, do it.
Yeah, I like that. Cut JKS. M80.
No.
ENCE.
No. Unless he's not calling.
That's the rest of my list. I don't see any other teams. Like most of the other teams have either made off-season changes for an IGL, or they have somebody who they're definitely not moving away from, like Alexib or Apex. Unless
some other team goes for some desperate rebuild sort of scenario, I don't see it happening. I mean, he is. It's not that he's not good enough to be on some of these teams, but like the ENCE example, ENCE's problem so far isn't Glaive being a bad caller. Since they've rebuilt with this international version of the team, they've played fairly decent Counter-Strike. They've been fairly strong. The problem has been, like when they lost that Falcon series, who's the next star? Because X-Casper Sky hasn't found his feet yet as a star on the rifles. Pody's been quite quiet in the games where they played big teams with good AWPers. It's not so much that ENCE can't call to the level they need to. Glaive did a great job of setting up players for fights and getting them in, good rotations and all that other good stuff. Nechu's just been the only one in that specific example, but also in a couple others, who's been able to play up to the level. They just haven't finished developing. And you can make a case for, then they should get a younger IGL in. I'm like, sure, but you're essentially telling Shuhei, go be a tier 1.5 like academy player again, instead of a tier 2 academy player. Like, you know what I mean? It's a bit of for him, it'd be a massive downgrade, and something I don't think he needs to do. I think he just needs to watch out for the right spot, and I think the right spot is either going to be Liquid or G2. And I think, don't know who's most likely to do. I think you're most likely to get that move made by Liquid rather than G2, because I think G2 are still very committed to their coach IGL combo. I mean, their coach isn't likely, I think, to think, we need a change in our calling and structure. I don't think that's in Taz's head. I think what he needs is, I need a more motivational way of saying nice guys in between rounds. That's what I need. So I don't think they're aware that they need such radical changes. Like in their minds, I don't think it's necessary.
the issue with waiting for the right moment is G2 might just never get their thumb out of their ass, and Liquid, I feel like they've made a pretty big commitment to Twists, and it's received a lot of praise from us as well. So it's one where I feel like it's not as... It is a good move to make. It's just not really a slam dunk, because I feel like Liquid might want to stay committed to Twists.
Yeah, they might like the idea of him IGLing, but
yeah, so...
Why would you not take Shuhei even as a hard entry? Like, I don't want Shuhei to not be calling on this team.
Yeah.
But come on. You need a hard entry.
Yeah.
Just go sign one. Get rid of JKS, who's just an anchor too many.
Yeah, so it's... I'm not sure that... So the risk is that if you sit around and wait for the right opportunity, then you might literally never get it. And then we end up Shui being,
getting Hooksy.
Sitting in the pub with Hooksy, yeah. Just watching the games.
Yeah, the problem there is that Hooksy is old and
can't
frag. Sure. He's an off-meta IGL, in the sense that he's a proper caller.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Like, he can't really do much else. He lies in the Karrigan, snappy sort of boat. Obviously, Alexi B recently just hasn't shown any fucking ability to provide firepower. I would say Snacks, but I don't think he's that good a caller. But he's kind of that mold of IGL. Incredibly smart, but not reliable with a rifle in his hands, which is something you need to be. You just need to be better in my eyes going forward. And we'll keep seeing it. Like, Major gets his team to a grand final off the back of some outstanding fragging performances. His overall ratings are going to reflect that. And so, wannabe analysts with Polish names will be like, why is everyone riding on Snacks? Look at everyone else's stats. It's like, first off, calling diff. Second, Major actually, if you watch the games, will take entry positions to be traded and hit the shots. He double entried into A-site Anubis when Zaiwu missed. He then banged Zaiwu's head off. Oh, no, he sprayed Zaiwu down, then transferred, next bullet, drops headshot dead. And you're like,
yeah,
that's an IGL right there. That's what the modern IGL has to be able to do. Not necessarily the highlight real fragging, but the quality of frag, at least to not be a liability. Especially on CT sides now with the economy problems and limited number of opportunities. It's just a necessary part of the game. So
yeah,
I think Shuhei is very valuable in the current market.
He is.
Relative to Hooksy. So he should get a team relatively quickly in my eyes.
Yep. All right. I think that's
get into the rest of it.
That move. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk more about that next week when we've had interviews from Cyclone and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably. I'm expecting that much. Do you want to grade them this week?
There's very few of them, but yeah, I can grade them.
All right. So first off, we have BC Game cutting Guardian and adding Nork.
I think that's a B+. Nork is a great addition, especially for Guardian. Like, the pound for pound upgrade there is fucking huge. But
pound for pound, it's a downgrade. But
no, but then you have... It's such a weird time. Like, Guardian joins this project as a coach. He starts playing out of necessity when the Joel thing happened. He decides to keep playing, and they sign a new coach, and then he's cut because he's too bad at playing. It just seems like it's a really weird saga, which just, I don't know. In any case, Nork is in, and I think it's a good move to make. Nice little spot for him with, some of the old Apex players. Lekro is there, and Prime Taps, I think, has done a decent job. It's just, this team isn't really going anywhere, and I'm not really sure. It definitely feels like a move that Nork maybe made so he can do something during the spring season and hope that he can show enough to get a bigger pickup later. I don't think the ambition is for him and BC Game to make the Austin Major.
No, they'll be... they're slowly reuniting like a kind of Apex type lineup, and I don't really believe in it.
No.
Not at all. I think B+ is fair, though, because it is an upgrade. Guardian was not playing very well. Honestly, yeah, you're right about the mess it's been. Like, Guardian's a coach, but then Guardian's a player, then now he's too shit, as we expected, and now he's no longer a player. It's just ugly.
Yeah.
It's very, very ugly. Up next, we have Wildcard Academy add Wonder and Friend. Is this just here because of Wonder? Because I almost ignored this move entirely when I saw HLTV post about it. I was like, who cares?
I think it's here because I think it's a pretty cool move. They've been around for a while, and we talked about this roster before. It's just now they're starting to announce it. It looks a bit different. They qualified into Advanced, straight away through the qualifier. And their first 2 announced additions, they've played 3 games already. They've played with, I can tell you who they've played with. They've played with, Wonder was there. Friend was not there. They were playing with Tagged, Bambosh, Essen, the Danish guy, and Wumbo, the Dutch player. So yeah, what they've announced is the coach Splawik, they have Wonder, and they have Friend out of nowhere. And if I'm going to grade the move, I think it's maybe an A-, because I think these are 2 good players to add. Friend is not as old as he seems. He's 22. And they are familiar with him. They played with him in that one LAN event last year. Wonder is a great pickup, slam dunk pickup. I'm not surprised that's the first player they announce, because he's one of those guys who should be on an academy team right now. It's a good spot to be in, ESA Advanced as well. It's a minus because I'm not sure what's going on really. You've already played 3 league, you qualified for Advanced, and you've already played 3 league games, and then you make roster changes, and you haven't even announced like some of the other players. Like, is Tagged still on this team? I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway, it's just kind of weird to me. But yeah, good move. And we will be watching Wonder with great interest. They're playing in Europe as well, so I think for most events, like I'm assuming they could end up playing a couple on like an event here and there where they end up getting a half decent Valve ranking. They can make it into United 21 and that sort of thing, European Pro League. If that's sort of where they end up, they won't have any overlap with Wildcard whatsoever in terms of invites. So could be a solid little. I'm not going to say they're anywhere near competing with Spirit Academy or Navi Junior, but definitely a team with like a new look Young Ninjas and a new look MOUZ NXT. It's definitely a team I could see up there with them. So
I'm not sold. I mean, I never really was big on Friend. I remember from his Honoris days with Reiko, and I was just like, this team needs someone else to shoot someone, and you've got a fucking AWP, dude. Please do it. He just wouldn't. He just joins, for me, a long list of forgettable sort of Polish AWPers from Tier 2 that I'm like, you're all the samey to me. Like, just not that moved. So hopefully the rest of the roster is more up my alley in terms of the players I like. Otherwise, I'm going to be very disinterested in this Wildcard Academy. Next.
Right, yeah, that's about that move, yeah.
Red Canids have added Phelps and Niacin. What's your read on that one?
I think it's probably a. Who did they cut for this? Hardzao and Nathan?
Possibly. I mean,
yeah, I'll say.
I'm not that familiar with Red Canids.
I'll say a C plus, because I'm not really sure why you had to cut Hardzao. I think Hardzao's very good. So Phelps is good.
Probably role balance, but yeah. Well.
Yeah, Phelps is good, but it's really just recycling. At this point, you have Cold, Zera, Henny, and Phelps on this team. It's a little bit old. Nizin, I really don't have any idea about. I've never seen him. He was on Pain Academy and Kase before that. He was on Pain for a little bit, but yeah. Pretty much unknown. I guess they're hoping that this guy's like a new Venom Zera.
Yeah, there's not much indication for it, though. That's the problem.
No. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's probably, what did I say? A C plus. I'll say like a blank C. Like Phelps is a good signing. It's just he's old. You're just recycling a lot of old talent here, I feel like. So.
Yeah, I'm not.
Super weird.
I'm not that big on the Brazilian scene. But even for me, this one's just a head scratcher. Like they're just doing Brazilian scene things. Just players move around.
Yeah.
Not much else going on. 9Z have added Yell to their roster, and that's just as a coach. There's a coaching change. Switching from, who was it before? TGE?
TGE.
Yeah. TGE. Now Yell is coaching. Yell, who previously coached, who was it? I know it's someone I don't know. Yeah, Crew, that's where he was.
Oh, they were decent last year. If that's his merit, then maybe this is, something that can work. They had a half decent year last year.
Yeah.
Probably a B until we see anything else. 9Z really need to step up bigger, I think, so into this year compared to last year, because they have potential to be there, I think. for sections the last year they did show. We talked about them a lot last week, but very underwhelming transfer period for them. We'll see. It's a B for now.
Yeah, not sure to make of it either. I'm on the same boat of like I need to see some more. And finally, Gamer Legion have dropped their academy team, so this is Gamer Legion Academy, I believe.
Yep, and they had some interesting players. I think they had 360 was on air, the UK player, Adam 9130. Always a weird nickname, but yeah, he was there. They never really played anything notable. Goody was probably the big guy who, has been sort of around the block, so to speak, but he's had decent performances elsewhere. And Game Legion, they never really played anything big. They played a couple of, they played advanced playoffs and they went out pretty quickly. And not too sure what to make of this team. It's the team that made Andu, and that's about it.
They
try again, I suppose.
Yeah, they had an okay period with Andu, but more recently they've just fallen off the radar entirely. Especially with academies like NAVI, Spirit, Monty, all these academies playing really well in Tier 2. There was no time or space afforded to this lot to be just a forgotten developing, like, oh, one day they'll emerge from their cocoon, a beautiful butterfly. Like, no, we ain't got time for this shit. Hurry up, or get fucked. Yeah. And Game Legion picked get fucked, which is fair.
Yeah,
I think fair enough. I didn't see much of a future for that specific group of players. Too British to be good at Counter-Strike, I'm sorry. Two UK players, you never had a chance. What do you think this is?
That's
Paris?
The shortest. That's probably the shortest Eternal Shuffle we've had in months.
Oh yeah, we've been prime roster mania. This was. I mean, we spoke for about 20 minutes just on MOUZ.
Yeah.
And that was about as long as the rest of it. No, the rest of it took 10 minutes. But all right. Prospects of the week. We're closing off the episode in the same way we always do. And I'm going to start off because I not only have a prospect of the week that y'all are all going to see coming, because he's literally already been on the episode. It's obviously Molodoy. I'm going to give a shout out to a couple other people who I think are in the conversation now to start being prospects of the week. I just don't want to give them out for pity's sake. Because for me, the prospect of the week is still somehow Molodoy. He just got better and played even better opponents and kept winning and kept fragging. So he's still my prospect of the week. But a shout out to Starry for, back on Live Mission, playing his roles again, putting up some good numbers against some lesser opponents. That's a good start for him. These are all basic players who've had a good start. Grix, promoted from Aurora Academy to the Aurora main team. He's so far been productive for them, very productive, good rating. The team overall have lost some games they really shouldn't have. They've been a little underwhelming as a roster entirely with the new calling and the new adjustments they have to make, but he's been fine. He's not been the problem on this roster, so I think Grix deserves a shout out. And then finally, Peppo, the new Sinners AWPer, who I haven't watched a POV demo yet, but I've watched a couple games he played, and he actually had some nice highlights, good flicks. He seems mechanically quite tight. It could be another Czechoslovak AWPer who's going to come out and just impress us. We had Oscar for a while. We still do technically, even though he's playing on some random ass team. We had Forzi, who's slowly, finding form again on other teams. And now Peppo's coming out and he's actually banging. So
yeah,
I think those guys deserve a shout out, even if Molodoy is just, it's my guy. I'm spamming the Molodoy propaganda until he's finally accepted as the next coming of Jesus. I'm going to keep talking about him.
Yep. No, Molodoy is... We've talked about Molodoy before, and we're going to keep talking about him. Yeah, excellent player. And he's definitely... Kazakhstani AWPers, sort of the maybe
They've
the
got
vibe.
so many of them, don't they? Just endless number of Kazakh AWPers. And I'm going to be honest, most of them, not that great. Not that great, but there's so many of them. When you look at, you're like, I want to make a Kazakh team. It's like, all I have is okay support players and AWPers.
Yeah, I think the ones you could give most credit to is you have Molodoy, you have Icy, Khan is around. For some reason, I still can't really figure out why Khan was ever really a prospect for ambitious teams.
No,
you have Alcaran.
For me, that was a weird one. Alcaran is probably after the top two, that Molodoy Icy tier, Alcaran's the only one with, I think, proper upward potential. Like Khan and Moon, I'm just like, they're just there, dude. They're just there.
Yeah.
I don't really have that
Yeah.
much to rate them on. Like, I don't really see what's to love.
Yeah. But Molodoy is obviously top of the food chain in that sense. Next up, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, good pick. I'm gonna move on to mine. I had one of the standout players I think for this Blast bounty thing was Snow, who only played one series, but he was great throughout it, and while he was playing against Navi. And Snow is maybe the least prioritized player on Pain. He's just 17 years old. He's playing a lot of they vary a lot, but he ends up playing the B site sometimes next to Big Azera on Mirage, so to speak. And like, you know, if you're the short player but you're not challenging mid, that's not really a star position, I feel like. So yeah. But he really, really, really ended up delivering in this series, all three maps throughout, and especially on Mirage. I feel like there's a lot of times where like Snow not getting the one or two frags he gets is what sort of makes the difference in this one round, or like makes a round winnable, which otherwise wouldn't have been, etc., etc. Like, and that was pretty cool to see out of a player who is only 17 years old. And he's still been around for quite a while. Like, he was signed to Young Gods when he was 13, I think.
Yeah, super young. That was always like the anomaly, like on HLTV. Like, look at this kid. He's literally like a child.
Yeah, he was the male 09 before the male 09.
Yeah.
Yeah. So props to him. It's just a one series, but like, I think maybe he was maybe the weak link on this team. Or the weaker link when you had NQC, Davideus, and Big Azera as more or less proven, and then Kawes, I think, has shown a solid level for the past few months as well. So Snow was kind of the odd one out, maybe. But if he can sustain that, if that's his new level, more or less, if anywhere close to that, I think Pain are in for a really good year with some very talented players.
Yeah, they've needed a slight step up in level from Snow, like a coming of age, essentially. And yeah, this is a good start, a really strong start. Positive signs for them. I mean, obviously having already received a buff of Davideus coming in and just being lights out has allowed them to get this far. But yeah, to build upon it, they're going to need more from Snow, more of the kind of things we've already seen. I think it's a great pick. Still a kid, still a lot to show us. And yeah, it's weird. It's weird having been one of the people who's like, oh my god, there's a little baby boy on HLTV. He's 14. Who is this? To see him now on Pain playing big events, yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, good pick. And a fitting end to the show. All right. That's it. Good 90-odd minutes. Not bad.
Nice.
Not bad, not bad. But yeah, if you made it this far, you are my hero. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Sub if you want to see more content. And remember that members get access to a bunch of extra content and rights and privileges and all that lovely stuff. Yeah, let us know your thoughts on any of these moves, any of these takes we have. Were you affected by the Kraddening? Please join our support group in the comments. And yeah.
Don't call me American. Like, just today, somebody people thought I was American because of this. That's probably the most insulting thing. And even just today, somebody thought I was American on Twitter. I'm not American. I've never set foot on that continent.
He's lying. He's been doing an accent the entire time. His name is actually Liam Smith.
Oh, darn tootin', you found me out.
Okay, never mind. That killed it. That was awful.
See, I can't even fake it.
All right, we'll see you next week with our normal voices. Bye-bye.